Hi, Erin.
Hi, Debbie. How are you?
I'm doing well. How you doing?
Good. Apologies, I'm a little late. I haven't eaten anything today. It's one of those days.
You're not late. You're not late. Don't worry. I was just finishing up another Zoom call that we were, so.
Perfect. Well, we'll wait for others to join and we can take care of other tasks in the meantime, unless there's anything you want to chat about, just us. Thanks again for all your support.
Oh, you're welcome. No, I let everyone join this because what's been happening, there's a good 30% people that just do a no-show.
Yeah.
So are you okay like with 10 people per room?
Yeah, I think that's fine. I have
Okay.
for Smith Group, I facilitated, small virtual coffee events, and I've run polling sessions with healthcare systems, and we've had like 20 participants in the room, and it's still been intimate and enjoyable. So I feel like it's perfectly fine.
I think that's going to be worst case scenario, depending
Yeah.
the no-shows. But I just felt bad. I'm like, you know what? There's going to be no-shows if I don't let these few people in, and then the no-show. I was, going back and forth.
I'm always of that mindset. Like, absolutely. I also think too, just considering the optics on Coronet in this time, I don't want us to develop the perception that we are an exclusive organization, especially this committee. Like, the whole mission of this committee is to support, to share, to build a community, to support strategies and development. And in a virtual format, there's no reason to limit that. And plus it generates revenue, and we need revenue as a chapter. So I don't see why we wouldn't just, we can talk to Catherine, she differs a little bit, but in terms of where I stand, just let everybody in all the time. That's always going to be my answer to you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sure.
And I'll have plenty of time to do the breakout rooms. I just have them labeled as breakout room 1 through 7.
That's perfect.
And then I'll make sure that there's a speaker in each one, and then the rest will be just randomly put into the rooms.
Great. And I'll address briefly, as we discussed, our sort of, expectations for participants, that we will be breaking out into small networking rooms. We will not return to the large group. Okay.
And then on that polling question, I think it's between you and me. Just remember, we want to do a screenshot.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you for that reminder, because that is a good lesson learned I had from the first time I ever did a poll. I was like, where's my data? Like, because I did a PowerPoint like notes share out afterwards of like everything we talked about, took notes, did beautiful graphics. Then I was like, oh, I have to make up the data from memory. So I'll take that screenshot. And then Tracy, I don't think I communicated this to you. She might have put it in an email. She doesn't want to show the results right away. She wants to, I think, at some point slightly later in the conversation say, okay, like, Debbie, let's look at the polling results. So okay. I think we'll run the poll, but we're not
don't share the results.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that was one small change.
You'll just have to yell out to me when you want me to share them.
That'll be on Tracy. I think she'll need to
say, like, once she comes on, we can.
Yeah, we'll confirm. But that was one tiny change to the flow. Okay. Thank you for the screenshot reminder.
I know I have it highlighted here. I wrote it down, and but sometimes so I figure if there's 2 of us doing it, one of us will. I'm recording right now.
Everyone for joining us today for our Career Strategies and Development series, Networking Tactics for a Virtual Business Environment. We know that how you choose to spend your time is really important. So thank you for choosing to spend it with us. Thanks, Debbie. So lots of good programming coming up through other chapter activities throughout February. A virtual tour of Pegasystems, science and data that organizations are using to map the return, a safe and secure return to the workplace, and the future of work, mobility, and planning. So be sure to check out the webpage for that. And as always, your resources are through social media. Please also share if you find things useful. We're always looking for a feedback loop of content that we can provide that is pertinent and relevant to you and to your needs. So definitely ensure that you're using social media as a resource, as well as amplifying the CoreNet message for us. We greatly appreciate it. And of course, none of this would be possible without our sponsors. They have been steadfast through this difficult time in continuing their support. It takes a village to make this organization go. And thank you to our sponsors. We couldn't do this without the help and support that we receive from so many of you. And a special thanks to our platinum sponsors, and special thanks to STD-DPM. Sandra Gucciardi is a speaker today. Our gold sponsors, so many members of the AEC community constantly attending, supporting, creating content for CoreNet, and engaging your networks to be part of it as well. We thank you. So today, if you have a question for the speakers, please use the chat function. You don't need to wait. You can type the chat into the function as a question comes to mind for you, and our speakers and moderator will do the best to make sure that we answer. I do want to note that as part of today's run of show, as part of the format, we will have networking breakout rooms. It would not be a networking session if we didn't incorporate networking and that value into this format. So when we conclude the panel discussion and have a little bit of a Q&A session, then Debbie Crooks will break us out into virtual breakout rooms. So you will find yourself in a breakout room, and there will be a facilitator in that breakout room there to help make introductions and carry on the conversation of today. We will not be returning to the large group format. So you have a choice. At the conclusion of the program today, you can simply leave, enjoy your lunch, have a wonderful Friday and a great weekend, or you can stay for 15 to 20 minutes of guided networking in a breakout room. Before I hand it over to our moderator, Tracy, I just want to acknowledge that this is our first Career Strategies and Development session of 2021. Here with me today is my amazing co-chair and friend, Catherine Stanford with Liberty Mutual. Many of you will be fortunate enough to likely end up in a breakout room that she will be facilitating. And I also would like to take a moment to pause and welcome Therese Consalvo of CBRE. She has joined the Career Strategies and Development Committee as a member. And Therese, your bright spark, your energy, we're thrilled to have you. I want to thank Tracy Jabs, our committee member and our moderator for today. Tracy, this program has been a long time in coming. It's been through many iterations, and you have guided it with grace and ease and strategic insight. And I can't wait to watch it flow today. So thank you for all your efforts. And thank you to Sandra, Jean, and Danielle, the time, the purpose, and the thoughtfulness that you have put into preparing for today. It takes a lot of work, and you've done it on volunteer time, on your own time. So for those of you that are having an opportunity to sit and to enjoy and to participate today, please make a special effort to acknowledge our speakers, our participants, and each other for the choice that you have made to volunteer your time. I think that's important to recognize that we are all here on our own energy, on our own time. So thank you. So Tracy, I'll hand it over to you. We can kick it off and you can introduce our speakers today. Thank you all.
Thank you, Erin. My name is Tracy Jabs. I'm a facilities project manager with Bluebird Bio. And I took on this topic because it was something that I was really interested in. I really enjoy working across different departments, different end users, internally and externally with vendors. And so this is a result of that interest of mine. I am going to start by introducing our panelists. Our first is Sandra.
Great. Thanks so much, Tracy. And can you hear me okay? Just want to make sure. Excellent. So welcome, everybody. I want to thank Tracy and the rest of my panel members. It was a great time putting this together, and I really enjoyed it. My name is Sandra Gucciardi. As Tracy said, I am the Business Development Director for STV, and STV is an owner's project management firm that focuses on life science, corporate, industrial, and academia clients. So thanks so much for having me today.
We'll go to Jean next.
Great. Hi, everybody. Happy Friday. One of the things that I was going to share is, as I continue to think more about this conversation, which we've had quite a few times, which has been great, really getting prepared for this, is I think we should think a little differently about networking because we do it in every single bit of our lives right now. And I think I'm starting to think more about it as, connections and how important communication is. Even though sometimes we're worried we're over communicating, I think during these times, everyone appreciates when we are doing that. So I'm Jean Nutt, Principal and Managing Director of Boston office of Gensler, and also involved with Coronet as the Real Advantage co-chair. And it's great to see how Crave has really kind of woven itself through all of our committees and really created wonderful content for us to share with our members. So thank you again for inviting me, and looking forward to the conversation with the rest of the panel and Tracy as our fearless leader.
Thanks, Jean. And Danielle?
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for having me today. I'm excited to participate and get to network with everyone on the call. I am the head of project management for Biogen, and I recently joined there about 6 months ago. So I have hopefully some good advice on joining a company during the midst of a pandemic and doing everything virtually. So looking forward to discussing that with everyone today and participating in the panel.
Great. So we're going to jump right into it, and we're going to start with basic best practices. Sandra's going to lead us off on this topic, and Gina is going to step in to add some more.
Yes, thanks so much. So, I was happy to hear what Jean said about thinking differently about this, because it just makes so much sense. And for me, I don't know, I mean, I did say I was business development director for STV, but it really is my job, right? So networking is a huge part of my job. But I will say, whether I'm doing this for my job or just out in everyday life, I'm really doing the same thing. So just to offer some tips right out of the gate, I would say my number one thing that I truly believe, and it's going to sound so cliche, but it really is to be authentic, right? And being myself just makes for easier conversation. I'm not trying to be somebody else. And when I'm meeting new people, it just happens organically. And I feel as though when you're networking, you're really trying to build relationships, right? You're trying to build a network, and whatever that might be, as Jean said, throughout your life. So building rapport, having conversations, that's what it's all about. And in the end, it really builds trust, right? So people, and I know you've heard this before too, people love to do business with people that they like, that they trust. And honestly, you do that by making conversations and having relationships. So being authentic is really the truly number one step, in my opinion.
Yeah, I was going to add on to that. Something that we've been talking about a lot recently is that when you reach out to people, this has been really tough on everyone, and we have to really take into consideration, kind of the empathy around that person. Don't just dive right into business stuff, depending on what your relationship is. People are interested, you kind of have to feel it out about talking a little bit about what's going on with themselves, how's their family, and I think that really does help to support the authentic part of it, because we're just all in this together, and every day we're still trying to figure it out. And so I think Sandra's true. It's just making sure that you're really approaching it in the right way. I also found that in the beginning, I think everybody was in kind of panic mode, and it took probably a couple of months once we realized it wasn't going to be just a few weeks that we were working from home, that we did have to pivot. And I think initially we had to be very, very intentional about, again, how we reached out to people because of, their own situations in their business. But then I think it got to the point where, even though, everybody still kind of complains about Zoom fatigue and all that, I think, which is true, people just wanted to connect. And so getting the call from you, or the email with the ping to say, hey, let's set up a time to talk to each other, was really, really welcome. And I also feel that I know we became almost 100% video culture, which was also very unusual from the past, because we just didn't think about doing a video call with somebody. We would think about just calling them on the phone. So I think that is really, really important to, again, it's all based on what people's comfort level is, what makes sense in the way that you're going to, communicate with them.
Yes, absolutely. And Jean, I would, to add to that, I know if someone were to Google right now and just kind of getting back to best practices and what are the 4 or 5 things that pop out of the gate, a lot of times you might see, well, start with an elevator pitch, right? And for those of you, most of you, I'm sure know what that is, but it's a 30-second, 60-second, 90-second, like we did our intro coming in, maybe adding another sentence or two, but really, like Jean said, that's not how you want to start, right? You don't want that to be your first conversation coming in. I've met some great people here, even in Cornet, and I still remember those conversations, and I still have those relationships, and they're really deep rooted right now. And I can tell you, some of them are my colleagues, some of them, Danielle, some of them are your colleagues. I can tell you, I met Jean at a conference out in Cornet, not even here locally, just because, we just started conversations, and none of those conversations started with, what do you do for work, right? They were about just having conversations about maybe my ethnicity, I love to drink wine, whatever that is. But in just preparing for networking, I would say when we go back live maybe, or people that are thinking about, how do I do this? I'm nervous. It's great to be prepared too, right? So I know a lot of times when we network, even on video here virtually or live, we've all worked, if it's a night event, 8, 9, 10 hours days, right? Straight. And the last thing sometimes we want to do is maybe network or meet new people. But I will tell you, just being prepared. Maybe sometimes when you register, you get an attendee list. You can look through it. Are there some folks there you've always wanted to maybe touch base with? LinkedIn is a great resource, go on there, see what some commonalities are. You may have gone to college with some of these folks. You may see what their passions are, so that when you see them at the event, whether it's virtual or live, you can talk about those things. They're great starter conversations. So I find being kind of prepared, going in with intentions, is a great way to really start networking. And it's easy because then you use your authenticity.
Very much so. I have found the other thing that's worked really well, even though we might sometimes feel like we're overscheduled, is to really be intentional about, somebody who, a client that you want to check in with them every 3 months. But you say to them in the beginning, like, hey, it'd be great, to check in on a quarterly basis. They're like, that's a great idea. And then you get it on the calendar and you don't have to think about it because there's so many other things we're thinking about. And I have found that, no matter what the timing is and what's happening in those every 3 months or once a month, depending on the relationship, it's just a great way to have a catch up and a conversation, no particular subject. I know we do that, even with colleagues, which has also changed, I think, my kind of networking relationship with folks who, when I'm in the office with them, I'm more, kind of used to scheduling that drive-by or just, picking up the phone and saying, hey, can you come by for a minute? So it's this organizing yourself in a way that one helps organize you, but also make sure that you're reaching out and making those conscious connections and scheduling things to make sure that, it's like 6 months from now and you said, oh my gosh, I've had really great intentions to call and talk to somebody, but you didn't because we don't have those virtual, I should say, face-to-face meetings anymore where you see somebody at a conference and you say, oh, let's call tomorrow and talk and stuff. So I think, trying to get stuff scheduled within a certain reasonable amount is something that I think has been working really well.
Yeah, and Tracy, if I could just add to that, talking about intention again, Jean mentioned she co-chairs Real Advantage. Part of networking is not just going to events, right? It's networking within different elements. Like I know Jean mentioned this right from the start as we go on through our whole entire life. So we're both on committees. I'm on 2 committees and co-chair a committee within CoreNet. A lot of my network, and Jean is one of those folks, right, is those committees that we're in. We've made some great friendships, some great networking, not just going to events, but getting involved. And I would say, I said authenticity, but honestly, getting involved in organizations is an unbelievable way to network. And it's a really natural process. Wouldn't you agree, Jean?
Yeah. And the other thing, and I mentioned this in the beginning, kind of this concern that, oh, wow, I haven't talked to so-and-so in such a long time. When I send them an email or something, are they going to think I want something from them? Versus it's a person that you might typically run into and then, you know, you would get together. It's trying to get over that, you know, oh, maybe I shouldn't reach out to them because they're going to think I want something from them, versus, you know, whatever the messaging is, it's more about trying to connect. And if they reply, great. If they don't, everybody's kind of, you know, trying to get out from under their emails almost every single day. And, you know, there's a good chance they probably missed it. So some of it is just kind of getting over the, oh, I don't know if I should do that because it's different or whatever. And you know, and it's tough even when we're not in a virtual world. It's trying to, you know, look at how to balance that connection with the fact that you are also trying to, you know, figure out how to work with that person a little bit more or create some commonalities or discover them.
Yeah. That's a great way to sort of summarize the people that we work with and the people that we know that are part of our network. And I think this is a good segue to turn it over to Danielle to talk about, what about when you don't know that network, when you're jumping into it
exactly.
in the middle of COVID? So Danielle, can you share what that experience has been like for you?
Sure. Thank you. I'd be glad to. So yes, I took a big leap of faith and joined a company right actually at the start of the pandemic. I was interviewing with Biogen. And at the time, you know, we were talking about it thinking like, oh, you know, this is going to be a couple months, but we'll be back to work and it'll be no big deal and what have you. So I would say out of the gate, it was a very interesting interviewing process with a lot of video. So one lesson that I learned just with interviewing virtually is practice. So I had my husband and I practice with different video platforms because people use Teams and Blue Jean and Zoom and whatever. So we practiced in different rooms in our house. So I would make sure that whatever Biogen sent me for my video was working. So that was really helpful initially. And then I would say once I started the job at Biogen, there was a lot of effort from my management team into making sure I was comfortable. So they went the extra mile of checking in a lot to make sure that I was feeling comfortable, that I was networking within the company. And in addition, they also set up what was normally an in-person walking tour to meet with various people amongst the company. It was a virtual walking tour, but I met with probably 30 people within the company in different roles over the first 2 months of joining the company, which was really great because I got a very wide perspective of roles within the company, how the company has worked. Some people had boomeranged back from leaving Biogen and coming back. And so that was really great to hear as a new employee that they had boomeranged. And I think one thing that I mentioned to this group when we were practicing to the panel was a few people, when my announcement went out that I joined the company that I didn't know, reached out to welcome me to Biogen, to offer to help with anything I needed. Virtual coffee, anything. And I've stayed in touch with a few of them already, and you know, they're global, so they're all over the world, and it's a really great takeaway that I took for new employees. So now when a new employee joins the company, I reach out and I say, hey, welcome to Biogen. Is there anything I can help you with? Do you need any advice, or would you like to know anything about the company? And it's a really nice way to make someone feel welcome when you don't have to. It's just going above and beyond to really welcome new employees, because it is very different to join virtually. I've still not met my entire team in person, which is also unique, but I've met most of them. And of course, with video, you get to meet everyone virtually. A few other pieces of advice that I think might be helpful to everyone in the meeting is just there's a lot of things we can take advantage of being in this together, as Jean and Sandra had alluded to earlier. We're all in this together. This is a global situation that everyone is trying to figure out how to work through. And there's a lot of tools we can use, such as videos, to help us network. But also, I find at Biogen, the leadership team is very cued into how employees are doing, how is remote work going, and they're making themselves very available, I think, to all employees, which is amazing. And it's really a great opportunity, I think, for all of us to take advantage of reaching out to leadership, potentially networking within our groups and within our companies to really meet the leadership team, understand what their goals are, and how we can help the company in general. So I would say, while the situation is not ideal, we're all sort of learning how to work within the new environment, and I think there's a lot of things we can really do to help each other out. And I would say, if you're in the market to look for a new job, feel free to reach out. I can help you with any tips, but it's not as scary as it seems. Thank you, Tracy.
Awesome. That was great, Danielle. And I think that leads us really nicely into our next section, which is really about forming those habits about what operational changes companies and individuals have made during this time, talking about how it relates to health and wellness. So a few of the things that we shared as a team over the last couple of months as we've been talking about this, one that I shared was that at Bluebird, we switched from half an hour meetings to 25 and 45-minute meetings. And it really gave us that opportunity to breathe, to get up and stretch. Otherwise, people found that they were sitting at the computer for 8 hours a day and they hadn't gone to the restroom in 2 or 3 hours. So it was just tough. So we found that some of those operational changes where our company literally went in and changed the settings in Outlook so that you were forced to really to let yourself do that without having to override it. The other thing is that, did you want to add anything?
No, I was just going to say that, I completely latched onto that and brought it to our leadership team. And we had this funny kind of psychological discussion around, should you start at 11 or should you start at 11:05 and go to, so what end of the meeting should that extra couple of minutes be? So I think everybody thought that was a great idea. And it's just something where it's, which is better? Do you want to be late, kind of the old idea of late, or do you want to finish early?
Yeah. And one thing that you had talked about, Jean, is just reaching out to people that you haven't seen in a while because you don't physically see them at an event. It's just being able to have a really casual phone call. And that doesn't mean that you have to get on Zoom. Erin and I have done this a lot over the last couple of months, is that we have a really quick phone call and she's off walking or doing something with her kids. So it gives you a chance to bring that work-life balance in on those days where you don't feel like being Zoom ready. Everybody needed to step back and take a breath and try to understand what that was like. And for some people, actually, most people are not truly an introvert or an extrovert. They're what you call an ambivert. So they require that social interaction at some varying degree. So it gives everybody the chance to sort of figure out what their comfort zone is and what works for them. And hopefully at this point, after we've been through this or going through this for almost a year, hopefully everybody's there and they feel like it's working for them.
Yeah, I think that's great. I also, I've, obviously have kind of my bubble of friends and colleagues that I see on a, every now and then basis. But I also found it fascinating that, some people are really diligent about staying at home, staying away from folks. And I totally respect that. But it's kind of back to the whole thing of why not ask if they want to go get a cup of coffee or if they want to go on like a walking meeting and such. But don't be afraid to ask that. If they're not comfortable with it, they certainly will let you know. And then you just, figure out another way to connect. And you know, as we continue in this, you know, right now it's not the best time of year to be going on walks and such. You know, we're going to come up with a creative new way to make the get together a little bit more interesting. I know as part of Real Advantage, we've just started doing our virtual, you know, kind of dinners, which we're calling them happy hours, and we've had 2 so far. And, you know, at first our group was worried that it was going to be Zoom fatigue again. But I think since it was, you know, very social, great topic, a fun, you know, little package that got sent to their house to, you know, have a little food and drink. It was a creative way. And obviously there's a lot of local companies that would love to be able to, you know, provide that as part of, you know, giving back to small business. And I know, you know, many of my other friends who are also in, you know, kind of the network business development. How do you creatively do something like that for your client? Is it a smaller group of people that might be more project related if you're, you know, in a certain phase of a project, that, you know, brings you together in a way that sort of feels like you're trying to get back to normal, but, you know, certainly appreciates that we still have to be virtual right now.
Agreed. I'm going to mention one more thing that's more about the business side of it than the social side of it. That's going to lead us into sort of expectations and some more of that creating comfort and etiquette. And what it is it's really about your meetings. So when they are business and you should have an agenda for every meeting that's scheduled, you know, there are truly 3 types of meetings. They fall into 3 categories. It's you're pulling together people to make a decision, to share information, or to evaluate something and come to a conclusion. So you really need to be very specific about bringing those people together, the time that you're expecting of them, making sure that they understand what their responsibilities are, making sure that you document things appropriately and follow up. So make sure that that time that you're scheduling is really being used to its best, and that it's not just something that happened and you don't follow up on. You want to make sure that it was for true purpose. So so going into that whole expectations and comfort, etiquette, external networking, I think Jean is going to start us off and talk a little bit about that.
External protocols. You know, there's just this kind of underlying best practice, which does start a lot with, you know, being authentic, kind of having empathy around who you're connecting with. And I've found, you know, for me, kind of the external networking protocol is a little bit about, you know, initially just reaching out. Usually I do it with an email, so I'm not, you know, calling somebody and leaving a message. And then eventually I think you start to, you know, figure out what the cadence of it is. And, you know, back to every person's gonna want to communicate with you in a slightly different way. So you try to, you know, make sure you're really respecting that. I think what else? Etiquette. Yeah, some of it is just common sense. You know, don't bother somebody like every week with an email if you didn't hear from them. You know, maybe there's a way that you are sending something to them that's informational. You know, obviously we generate a lot of blogs and things during this time. And so maybe see an article, or maybe there's something that your company is putting together to try to help, you know, navigate through. That sometimes is going to be a little bit more interesting than, you know, just trying to have a conversation. So, you know, it's like anything, it's trying to provide it something that hopefully will allow you to, you know, make a connection and at least try to get a little bit of something back from it.
And Jean, I agree 100% with that. And one of the things I will say about business development is that true great business development is adding value, right? It's that, for me, that give, and it's a lot of what we do when we're on committees too.
Right.
And then you'll naturally receive, right? So I find, especially in the COVID climate that we were in, when you know, we were all on the same playing field, as we just said, right? Everyone's on the same level. I will tell you all that even me reaching out to C-level suite folks, it's the first time I've had so much positive response. And obviously I don't say, let's set up an hour because not everybody has the time, but I might say 15, 20 minutes. I'd love to knowledge share with you what our clients are thinking and doing at this time, because everyone wanted to know, what are you doing, during COVID? So there wasn't a no that I was getting, because I was really offering, I was hoping some value, right? And so what I love to do is this. And so I just found it was easy to do in this time, because I didn't have to just send emails. I could, over and over and over again, set up these calls or send articles or the return to office, whatever that was, and truly add value, and even get some of them to combine in a group and set up those meetings, whether it was all tech companies or life science companies, and let them knowledge share. So I felt like I was adding value. And I think if you can do that, your network is going to just expand and explode. It's just, and then the other thing I would just say, add to that, Tracy, is networking. I feel like there's two sides of, excuse me, business development and networking. There's a professional side, and all of these things that Jean and Danielle and Tracy and all of us have just talked about. But then that's why I love the Young Leaders Program. There's the professional development side of it. And you heard some of that even on the Crave video when we did our introductions, because really networking is for you. It's for all of you on here. It's for getting yourself out there. It's for having people know who you are, knowing that eventually you're an expert in this industry, right? And if you're not out there, networking, not just for your company, this is for yourself. I mean, think about the time of COVID right now. How many people lost their jobs, right? If you're out there naturally networking, and then a job comes up, an opportunity comes up, you're going to be able to say, hey, remember me? We met at a CoreNet event. And they'll probably remember you, and you have a leg up on somebody else. So I highly, highly recommend people network for themselves. This isn't just for business, right?
Yeah.
It all is what encompassing.
Yeah, definitely. The other thing I was going to mention, which is a little bit more tactical, one of the things in Gensler is that, really empower our folks to be very entrepreneurial. So we don't really have, specific business development folks. However, everybody is so anxious to make connections that we have to be really careful about not having 2 and 3 people like calling the same person to find out about something that they heard. And we've been, again, a lot more, thoughtful about that, probably scheduling more conversations, because again, you can't do that, kind of impromptu walk by and say, hey, I just heard this, blah, 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 kind of thing. So I know sometimes it's something that probably we forget to manage, but it is something that's important to make sure that, you're not necessarily, kind of overwhelming someone who you are actually trying to get some information from.
If I could just add 2 points, Tracy, I think just from the client side, I think what Jean and Sandra have pointed out about really trying to bring value when you're reaching out to a client is really helpful. We're very busy in our projects and everything that's going on within the companies, and we do look to all of our vendors and support for what is happening in the industry, what new things are coming, what have you seen about COVID, return to work. I did participate in a lot of roundtables on return to work. So I think for me, I get a lot of contact, which is great. I love being contacted, but it's really helpful when there is something maybe that you can offer to help or just give some insight. I also really like when people just reach out to say hi, or an interesting network event that, is fun and it's not about work. Maybe it's a wire event and it's a yoga class, or it's something different. So that's also something that I enjoy as a client. And then I would say, just on a personal level, I really have to work to schedule time so that I network, so that I'm not video exhausted during the day. And on a day that I'm planning to attend a network event, I'll block time for me to prepare before the event, so that I'm not just rolling right from my meetings to the 6 p.m. event. So I think trying to time management a little bit is a good also cue for you guys when you're trying to do some more networking, so that you're fresh, you're ready to go, you've done some homework on who's going to be at the event, and you're excited to go, whether it's who knows, they're all getting very creative. So thank you.
Oops, Tracy, you're on mute.
Thank you, Jean. That actually leads us to our first question, which any of you can chime in on, is what is our take on trying to schedule one-on-one conversations versus attending events that we were used to doing live in the past? So do you feel like there's some format to that or some sort of etiquette? Or do you just reach out? Is it somebody that like you haven't talked to in a while?
I feel like everybody's looking for connections, and even if you haven't talked with someone in a while, why not reach out just to say, hey, I usually get a chance to see you when we attend a conference, but we're obviously not doing that. Love to connect.
Right. I think people are, like Jean mentioned many times, everybody's looking for connections right now, right? Human connections. And it's funny how it can be in Zoom all day, and then at night, I think Danielle hit this too, right? She went to a yoga class or whatever that is, but I'll have a happy hour with, as Jean put it, my bubble group of friends, and it feels totally different, right? Because it's that connection. It's kind of, I'm laid back now, I can have a glass of wine or whatever that is. But yeah, I think one-on-one is fine reaching out. And I think I mentioned the C-level suite. So I feel like that whole, we're all going through this together. I think people are a much more, I want to say, approachable, lenient about you reaching out. I feel like, everybody's really good about it lately. So I would say that everything applies the same pretty much.
Yeah. Okay. So that was the only question that we have in the queue. If anybody has anything else they want to enter right now. Otherwise, Debbie has our breakout rooms probably just about ready, and we will start moving into those. And then you can actually take your questions and share them with your groups. But we actually have some pre-formatted questions just to start the conversation. So please introduce yourselves and enjoy a little networking time.
Also, please make sure to turn on your videos when you get into your breakout room.
Right. Now we want to see you.
Thank you, everybody.